On this edition for Saturday, January 25th, the president's legal team lay out their defense in the Senate impeachment trial. And in our signature story, the wind energy industry faces the loss of decades-old tax incentives. Next on PBS NewsHour Weekend.
PBS NewsHour Weekend is made possible by Bernard and Irene Schwartz, Sue and Edgar Wachenheim III, the Cheryl and Philip Milstein family, Rosalind P. Walter, Barbara Hope Zuckerberg, Charles Rosenblum. We try to live in the moment to not miss what's right in front of us. At Mutual of America, we believe taking care of tomorrow can help you make the most of today. Mutual of America Financial Group, retirement services and investments.
Consumer Cellular offers no-contract wireless plans that are designed to help you do more of the things you enjoy. Whether you're a talker, texter, browser, photographer, or a bit of everything, our U.S.-based customer service team is here to find a plan that fits you. To learn more, go to consumercellular.tv.
Additional support has been provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you. From the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center in New York, Hari Srinivasan.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. The legal team representing President Donald Trump began their defense in the Senate's impeachment trial this morning. For 2 hours, 4 lawyers took turns making the case that there is no basis for removing the president from office on the 2 charges facing him: abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. White House counsel Pat Cipollone led off, repeating the administration's claim that Mr. Trump, quote, did absolutely nothing wrong in his calls with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and that Democrats left out facts when they made their case over the past 3 days.
Today, we are going to confront them on the merits of their argument. Now, they have the burden of proof. And they have not come close to meeting it.
He repeatedly charged that Democrats are using impeachment to undo the result of the 2016 election and prevent the president's re-election this November.
They're asking you to tear up all of the ballots across this country on your own initiative. Take that decision away from the American people. And I don't think they spent 1 minute of their 24 hours talking to you about the consequences of that for our country.
The legal team also focused directly on the House impeachment case manager, Democratic Representative Adam Schiff. They replayed Schiff's reading of what he admitted was an embellished account of the transcript of the president's July 25, 2019 phone call with Ukrainian President Zelensky.
I want you to make up dirt on my political opponent, understand lots of it.
That's fake. That's not the real call. That's not the evidence here.
The president's lawyers used most of today to preview their challenges to the Democrats' case coming next week. Using texts, emails, and video clips, they said the evidence shows the Ukrainians never knew military aid was being withheld, so it could not have been used as a threat to get Ukraine's leaders to announce an investigation of former Vice President Joe Biden and his son Hunter.
There can't be a threat without the person knowing he's being threatened. There can't be a quid pro quo without the quo.
The impeachment trial will resume Monday at 1 when the administration lawyers will make their full case defending the president. Joining me here in the studio to discuss today's impeachment trial are Jamie Floyd, host and legal editor at WNYC New York Public Radio, and Ryan Goodman, co-editor-in-chief of Just Security. Jamie, let me start with you. The defense, what did we learn today? This was supposed to be a trailer of sorts.
Yes, I like that phrase. You go to the movies and you get a little sneak peek.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what they did. They outlined what will be their rebuttal to the argument to remove President Trump from office. They laid out why they say the president did not violate the law. He was acting in his presidential capacity, they say, and anything that he did was not an impeachable offense. And they addressed in a prequel fashion both articles of impeachment, and then they said, you know, we'll sit down for today and we'll come back at you Monday with a more detailed rebuttal.
So in this, Ryan, one of the central contentions that they have is that what you've been hearing for 3 days, over 24 hours, is an incomplete set of facts. What are they talking about? What is the new information that the Democrats have been hiding?
So that was what they tried to do. They tried to suggest, here we are now presenting to you new information that you haven't heard in the past 3 days. But a large part of it was addressed by the Democrats and the House managers. And Adam Schiff, even last night, went through this pre-buttal where he said, here's what they're going to say tomorrow, and here's what our response is to that.
Right.
They did fill it out to some degree with additional video of testimony by others. So they tried to problematize, like, when was the first time that the Ukrainians knew that the aid was suspended? But it was interesting because in the same time that they presented all the videos of the officials, U.S. officials saying, well, the first time I knew they knew was like late August, then they leave out the video of one of the officials, the Defense Department official, Ms. Cooper, saying, actually, the first time that we knew in my department that the Ukrainians knew was July 25th, which is the very day of the call with President Zelensky.
So looking back over the past 3 days, did the House make its case well enough, considering we're really looking at 4, maybe 5 Republican senators that might be convincible?
There are 2 stages going forward. Now, the next phase, once Republicans finish with their 24-hour period of argumentation, if they take that full period, is whether or not those 4 or 5, you really only need 4, Republicans will agree to vote with Democrats to call in witnesses and bring in documentary evidence. That may happen. I'm thinking it's less likely than I thought it was 3 days ago, based on what I'm hearing from Capitol Hill and what I'm seeing in the responses to some of the arguments from the Democrats. But that may happen. Whether or not you can actually get the number of votes you need to convict, that's a completely different question. That's the end game, and highly unlikely. I think all analysts agree, and I think the Democrats see that writing on the wall.
And I think one of the most interesting dynamics that we've seen in the past few hours and few days is that when the president's team now presents their facts and says, you've been told other things, here's some contradictory information, it actually forces this question of, okay, if I'm a senator and I can't really resolve it, what must I do but have a true trial where witnesses can come forward? Who knows the real answer to this? John Bolton. Who knows the real answer to this? Mick Mulvaney. And I think that's why that issue is going to come to us in a way that I don't think many of us anticipated after today's hearing.
And what Republicans are saying, in part, or will be saying, and began to say today, is, well, why didn't you pursue that in the House? You know, you're so concerned about the political question and the political implications and the timing of the election. It was on you to pursue that in the House. But it is somewhat disingenuous when the White House was stonewalling. And even in a real trial, and of course we know this is not a courtroom in the truest sense of the word, this is a court of impeachment, but you can always call witnesses that weren't called in the grand jury setting. So this idea that we can't hear from witnesses is a bit of a fiction, and I think the Republicans know it.
At the core of this also seems to be a case that says, well, what is the power of the presidency? Are these co-equal branches of government? What is the extent of executive privilege that this individual can say, I'm using this power?
So it is a set of tough questions in that sense, and I do think one of the issues that the Democrats laid out well is the answer to that question will be with us for decades or centuries, in the sense that we've been looking, when we think about that question, well, what happened with the Johnson impeachment hundreds of years ago?
Yeah.
What happened with the Nixon impeachment decades ago? And so what the answer to that question here will define the relationship between the two branches for a long period of time. So can it be the case that a president can say, you know, you want any information from us? We're not participating whatsoever. We're not going to even tell you what specifically is executive privilege, just no participation. That's why the letter, this October 8th letter from the White House counsel to the House was declared by the New York Times in its headline, White House declares war on the impeachment inquiry, because it really was just nothing. You'll get no documents, no officials, no matter how low or high they are in the chain.
Right.
And that's something extraordinary that I think the Democrats are trying to say to the senators, this is about us too as an institution.
And the impeachment power is where Adam Schiff landed at the end of his argument, knowing that that would be the last thing he would say to the senators. What is the point of the impeachment power in the Constitution if it is not this moment in which we stand right now. So that is what this moment is all about, and that is why it is so historically important for this to be resolved in a way that understands the capacity of all three branches of government to check one another.
All right, Jamie Floyd, legal editor at WNYC, and Ryan Goodman, co-editor of the Just Security blog. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thanks.
China's President Xi Jinping warned of a, quote, accelerating spread of the coronavirus today and called the situation grave. 42 people have died, and the virus has infected more than 1,200 others since the outbreak began in the central Chinese city of Wuhan. At least 48 million people in China are now in a lockdown that includes a travel ban covering 15 cities. Festivals and events marking today's Lunar New Year are canceled. Hong Kong ordered schools closed through mid-February. 10 other countries, including the United States, have confirmed cases of the coronavirus, which causes symptoms ranging from cold and flu to pneumonia, which can be fatal.
So far, those cases that have reached other countries are linked back to Wuhan. So in terms of person-to-person transmission outside of China, we have not seen that yet. And there are, and I always like to put this in perspective, there are viruses in this country right now, such as the flu, that pose a much, much bigger threat.
The death toll from the strong earthquake that struck eastern Turkey yesterday is now at least 22. More than 1,000 people were injured and hundreds of structures were damaged during the quake, which registered a magnitude between 6.5 and 6.8. Emergency workers continue to search for survivors in the rubble of collapsed buildings, and President Erdogan inspected the areas affected in eastern Turkey. The initial quake was followed by more than 200 aftershocks with magnitudes as high as 5.4. For more on the Senate impeachment trial and the latest on what U.S. health officials are saying about the coronavirus, visit facebook.com/newshour. The U.S. currently has no national plan to combat climate change. Several states, however, have clean energy mandates, offering technology-specific grants and tax credits to help renewable energy producers compete with fossil fuels. And it appears to be working. Since the year 2000, the amount of renewable energy on our grid from sources like solar and wind has more than doubled. But after this year, a tax credit supporting wind energy for nearly 30 years is phasing out. NewsHour Weekend Special Correspondent Carla Morthy reports on how the industry is coping with the end of the incentive.
Off a rural county road in West Texas, several dozen local landowners and guests are gathered around three 200-foot-long wind blades. Using special acid-free markers, attendees sign the fiberglass and balsa wood blades, ceremonially kicking off what will be one of the largest wind farms in Texas, Aviator Wind. Hollis Ferris is one of those landowners. He owns a 5,000-acre ranch used for raising cattle and game hunts.
Well, I've always enjoyed the wind. Where my house sits, I get wind coming from this direction and that direction. I didn't think it'd ever make me any money.
8 of the 191 turbines that make up the Aviator Wind project will be on Ferris's property. Together, landowners negotiated how much they would earn when the turbines spin. Apex Clean Energy, which is developing the project, estimates that Aviator will generate $172 million for the 80 participating landowners. Ferris didn't want to disclose exactly how much he expects to make, but with his 8 turbines, he could easily earn 6 figures a year.
The way I see it, you have a bad year, this gives you an income to keep the ranch running.
When Aviator Wind is completed, it will produce 525 megawatts of energy each year, enough to power about 185,000 homes. Mark Goodwin is the CEO of Apex Clean Energy.
An older project from 10 years ago would have 2 or 3 times as many turbines, and the cost of the electricity has come down significantly in the last 10 years.
So way more productive.
It is way more productive, and the cost has essentially stayed the same or gone down.
The turbine blades being installed at Aviator are nearly 60% bigger than ones on turbines installed less than a decade ago. This helps each turbine generate more electricity, in turn driving down the price of the power it captures. Wind power in the United States has also gotten a big boost from a federal subsidy called the Production Tax Credit, or PTC. First passed in 1992 as part of the Bipartisan Energy Policy Act, it's one of several incentives to support renewable energy technologies in the United States. The PTC provides a subsidy to wind energy producers for each kilowatt of energy generated for the first decade of a project's operation. While the credit was originally scheduled to end in 1999, it has been extended by Congress 12 times since then.
The idea with the PTC was to say, okay, we've got these technologies that don't seem to be developing as fast as we want them to, so let's put an incentive there.
Melissa Lott is a senior research scholar at Columbia University's Center on Global Energy Policy.
So if you look back at 1992 and you look at onshore wind, we had somewhere around 1.5 gigawatts of wind. And if you look at it today, fast forward, we're talking at having over 100 gigawatts of wind power in the country. It's producing 7% of the electricity in this country at this time. Since 2011, we've seen the amount of wind on the system double. That's incredible growth.
At the same time, the PTC has also helped push down the wholesale cost of wind energy by about 70% in the last decade.
Onshore wind looks like it's competitive in a significant number of states in the US. So if the idea behind the PTC was to say, okay, we're going to help a technology that's not quite there, well, in the case of wind, maybe it is there now.
And that's exactly what lawmakers have determined. After nearly 30 years, Congress is phasing out the PTC. Wind projects need to be operational by the end of 2020 to receive the full credit, with the incentive completely disappearing by 2024. That means projects like Aviator are racing to be up and spinning this year. A turbine can be built in as fast as 2.5 weeks, and to build nearly 200 of them by the end of this year requires carefully choreographing the location of equipment, like cranes, and a small army of construction workers. While some teams are preparing sites, others are receiving and staging the massive pieces of infrastructure that make up each turbine. Getting the sections of each one here is also a logistical feat. The blades are shipped on expandable trailers and are so long that access roads built for the project can't be too steep, or the blades could scrape the ground. Beyond the scale and increased productivity of wind projects like Aviator, renewable energy has also gotten a boost from big corporations, hoping to address climate change by offsetting their greenhouse gas emissions. Among those signing the blades at Aviator was a team from Facebook, which is pledged to buy about 40% of the energy produced here. Urvi Parekh is the head of renewable energy for Facebook.
We've set a goal that in 2020, Facebook, 100% of its operations will be supported by renewable energy projects. And our interest is in making sure those renewable energy projects are in the same region or electrical grid where our consumption happens.
The power Facebook is buying from Aviator will offset energy used by its data centers in nearby Fort Worth and New Mexico. In the last 7 years, Facebook has already bought enough renewable energy to power about 75% of its operations.
Does it make economic sense to be purchasing power here from the Aviator Wind project?
You know, we look at the amount of money it takes to run our entire data center, and the renewable energy piece is built in for us. And it's not that many years ago when people believed that renewable energy was too expensive to use. And it's been impressive with technological advances to see the costs of renewable energy coming down.
Aviator's other major customer is McDonald's, which is also contracting to buy about 40% of the annual energy production here. It's the fast food giant's first large renewable energy purchase.
So you have some big companies that have agreed to buy a significant chunk of energy from your project. I mean, how important are those kinds of agreements to creating a market for big wind projects?
It's critical, and it is a terrific evolution of our industry where there are a lot of corporations like McDonald's and Facebook who understand that one of the best ways for them to mitigate their carbon emissions is for them to procure electricity from wind farms like Aviator.
Goodwin says these corporate commitments to combat climate change in turn end up supporting the rural communities where projects like Aviator are based.
So this whole facility is brand new?
All of it is brand new.
Aaron Hood is a superintendent of the Robert Lee Independent School District, which is located in the same county as Aviator Wind. Hood says that with just about 285 students, the district historically relied on taxes paid by oil and gas operations. More recently, though, it's been taxes paid by wind projects.
We're proud of it. Schools our size usually don't get opportunities to do this,
Yeah.
and so we were very fortunate.
Aviator is the third wind development to benefit the district, and it's expected to provide about $34 million in tax revenue over the next 25 years.
Did you ever think wind would play such an important part in running your district?
I did not. I don't think anybody here ever even thought about that. And so I think it's been, a blessing to us. I think it gives us the school, the facility that we have, and it's good for our kids.
But with the PTC phasing out, analysts expect there to be a drop-off in wind installations over the next several years. And although producers have known about this phase-out since 2015, some in the wind industry are worried.
It could be problematic if there is no carbon policy put in place.
Apex CEO Mark Goodwin says there was a belief that a larger plan to tackle climate change was coming.
The wind industry voluntarily agreed to a phase out, but that was in a scenario where over that phase out, we expected there to be a carbon policy that ramped up. Wind and solar generate no greenhouse gases. Fossil fuel generators, they pollute for free, and there should be a price on that, and that will help balance out where we go in the future.
There have been several proposals to curb greenhouse gas emissions dating back decades, including carbon taxes, cap-and-trade systems, and more recently, a Green New Deal that would mandate renewable energy on the grid. But the U.S. is far from passing any kind of national carbon policy to prevent climate change. In fact, in 2017, the Trump administration announced it was pulling the United States out of the Paris Climate Accords.
And this is an absence of a climate policy.
Energy researcher Melissa Lott says relying on incentives for specific technologies, like the production tax credit for wind, is not the most efficient way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
The best thing we can do is to have a policy that stays technology neutral and says our goal is zero carbon. Given that goal, here's a structure in which for you all to operate, and then let the markets decide what happens after that.
So, but without that federal policy, should we continue having these tax credits?
Yeah, so there are arguments both ways. But I think if we don't have a national policy that supports climate holistically, we should be doing whatever we can. And if the means before us is a production tax credit, then fine.
As the wind industry enters the last year of the full PTC, 2020 is projected to be a record year, with developers expected to install nearly 40% more wind energy than last year.
This is PBS NewsHour Weekend, Saturday.
Today marks the Chinese Lunar New Year and the beginning of the Year of the Rat. Celebrations will feature the traditional lion dance, ushering in good luck and fortune. In New York, one young dancer is showing how the tradition is being reinvented.
Lion dance started around the Tang Dynasty, most people would point it, which is several hundred years ago. And for the most part, lion dancing is an art that's reserved for martial artists. And more often than not, only the best students in a martial arts school could perform under the head. Of course, now it's more of a cultural and performance art that's more focused on blessings, going to big events, and most famously, we're there for parades. We're there for Chinese New Year. I started at 12 years old, and at 12 years old, it was a very tough uphill battle for me. First of all, I was very introverted. The person that I was at 12 years old would have been a very different person if I'd never picked up lion dance at all. Even now, there's not that many women that are visible, that play in the head, in the tail. However, in the Freemasons, we do try to change that. We do try to recruit women. I had all of these thoughts, I had all of these doubts lingering on me, and I had to face them head on. Like, any girl can do this. Like, if a 15-year-old boy can do this, a girl should be able to do this. I shouldn't be a spectacular case. I shouldn't be the exception. There's segments in society where there's not a lot of girl presence. But I'd like to change that. There is some sense of power when I get on the head, because I get to express myself. Nobody can see me, so I can act how I want, I can play how I want. If I want to do kicks, I'll do that. And if I want to mess around with other people, I'll do that. There's a sort of freedom.
You can find more news and reactions to the opening of the president's defense in the impeachment trial and our full conversation with Dr. Edith Bracho-Sanchez about the coronavirus on our website, pbs.org/newshour. That's all for this edition of PBS NewsHour Weekend. I'm Hari Srinivasan. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.
PBS NewsHour Weekend is made possible by Bernard and Irene Schwartz, Sue and Edgar Wachenheim III, the Cheryl and Philip Milstein family, Rosalind P. Walter, Barbara Hope Zuckerberg, Charles Rosenblum. We try to live in the moment to not miss what's right in front of us. At Mutual of America, we believe taking care of tomorrow can help you make the most of today. Mutual of America Financial Group, retirement services and investments. Additional support has been provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
You're watching PBS.